Undroppables Playbook, a football podcast. With your hosts, Ashley and Michael, please sit back and enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook. This is episode 2. We just finished week 1 of football. I'm your host, Ashley. This is my co-host, Michael Duncan.
Hey, everyone. How's it going?
It's going good. We have football back, so I am thrilled.
I'm surprised to hear you say that, honestly. Judging by the logo on your
sweatshirt. You had to go there? You really had to go there?
Look, if you can see the flag hanging behind me, you shouldn't be surprised if that's exactly where I went. So,
I'm glad you had a good your team had a good week. The only one in the NFC East to win.
I know. We're 1-0. Realistically, I'm just taking advantage of it while it lasts. Yeah. But all I'm saying is that if the season ended right now, we'd be in the playoffs. So
yeah, totally. So welcome back to the Undroppables Playbook. We're happy to have everyone today. I'll give you a little rundown. The Undroppables Playbook is a football podcast sponsored by the Undroppables, where we kind of, in season, we're going to break down a bunch of our games, talk a little bit about fantasy football, breaking news in the NFL, basically everything that has to do with football. So if you're a football fan, you're in the right place. That's for sure.
And if you're not a football fan, you're still in the right place because you can be a Michael and Ashley fan.
Exactly. I hope I have fans. That would be fun.
Well, now you officially do.
Oh, wow. Thanks. So your team won. I'm jealous.
Yeah, it was kind of surprising. I thought we could maybe win. I did not expect it to go like that. The first couple of drives for the Falcons looked, by the way, I'm an Eagles fan, for those that aren't watching the video. The first couple of drives, they drove right down the field. It was bend, don't break. We gave up field goals. And then after that, we allowed, I think, 1 third down conversion for the rest of the game. So, yeah, hats off to the defense. Hats off to Jalen Hurts, who apparently saw like a 500% increase in jersey sales. So, yeah, it's a good week to be an Eagles fan. That's to say, say this.
I can't say the same for being a Giants fan. Can't really say the same. It's the same old as a Giants fan currently. It's the status quo as it was last season and the season before that. So, yeah, not too much to say on that yet. We'll talk a little bit more about my team later and a couple of our players later. Before we get started, I want to let you guys know one of our sponsors is Analyst Depot. They're your go-to source for all of your fantasy football analyst needs. They have amazing suite of tools to help you be the best fantasy analyst. They have tools that show player shares, free reports on player and defensive performances week to week. And the best is their projection wizard. It basically does your team-by-team projections super easy. A lot of our team at the Undroppables uses their project wizard. So it gives you like step-by-step instructions and just helps you make smart projections with historical data and players all right in front of you, all in one place. You guys can go to analystdepot.com and sign up for a free account.
Awesome. So do we want to get into the injury report for the week? Because with football comes injuries. Yeah. There was a pretty good amount of injuries this week. Most notable is that Raheem Mostert is now out for the season. He suffered an injury in their game against the Lions this week, and he has chipped cartilage in his knee. The original report was that he was only going to miss 8 weeks, and it turns out he's now out for the entire season. Yeah, apparently he chose to get a surgery that I guess is going to help him more in the long term, but took away his ability to possibly come back this season. So unfortunate, but he's hopeful, at least judging by his post, that it's going to help him come back stronger than ever.
Yeah. Another huge one is the Washington football team's quarterback. That's Ryan Fitzpatrick is now on IR. And for those of you that are unaware, IR means that those players have to be out for a minimum of 3 weeks. So Ryan Fitzpatrick was put on IR for a hip subluxation. So that's basically when like the ball joint is not fully in your socket and it kind of causes a limited range of motion and has some longer term effects on like bone growth and stuff like that. And that happened on a sack during the game this week.
And I understood what all those words meant. He is expected to be out more in the 8 to 10 week range, if I remember correctly. So while IR means he only has to miss 3 games, he's definitely going to be missing more than that.
Yeah, and the backup for the Washington football team is Taylor Heineke, and the Washington football team is facing my New York Giants this week, which is heartbreaking because I love Taylor Heineke, but now I have to root against him.
It's so heartbreaking.
I'm
so sorry.
Another huge one, Jerry Jeudy is out. He suffered a high ankle sprain this week against the Giants. The video didn't look good. It originally looked like his ankle snapped, and that's when I was like, oh my god, he is going to be out for a long time, and he's not. It is just a high ankle sprain. In that game, he had 6 catches for 72 yards, so you could see he was doing so well. So I really hope he comes back and does well, because he's on the top list of my favorite players. I really do love him.
That one definitely has, I think, the biggest implications fantasy-wise, maybe with the exception of Ryan Fitzpatrick. But, I mean, he looked like he was the locomotive that the offense was just driving behind, and he was Teddy's go-to guy. Like you said, he had 6 for 72, and it just, it seemed on every play that's exactly where Teddy Bridgewater was looking. And obviously, Tim Patrick and KJ Hamler kind of stepped up after Jeudy left, with Courtland Sutton in his first action since being injured last year. But I think they're going to need Courtland to kind of come back and really get back to his old self if this offense is going to keep up and hopefully stay in competition.
Yeah, and I hope they do. I mean, they played my Giants already, so I hope they do, because the offense looked really good this week, and with Bridgewater starting, it was kind of a toss-up for how they were going to be, and they looked really good. So I'm interested to see how that plays out. Another injury is Rashad Penny, the running back out of the Seahawks, is injured with a calf strain. He's the backup to Chris Carson. And it seems like Rashad Penny has an injury like this every year.
Well, this, something else, something worse. Normally he's not even getting it while he's playing. So if anything, this is a step forward in the right direction.
Yeah, he did play a little bit. Now, I want to say his backup is DJ Dallas. So if you're in a deeper league and you're looking for kind of a running back that'll score you maybe a small handful of points, DJ Dallas is someone to look at. Chris Carson did have a really good week this week. So that's something, if they're going to put all of the workload on Carson, we're not quite sure. But I expect DJ Dallas to get a couple of touches. So again, if you're looking for kind of just a handful of almost garbage points, DJ Dallas is someone to look at in your waiver wire this week.
I mean, he becomes a backup and a high-value backup on an offense like that. Another guy to keep an eye on is Alex Collins, who looked awesome in the preseason. He was inactive for week 1, meaning he's most likely the fourth string back. But again, in this offense that wants to run the ball a lot, and you never know who's going to get injured next, another name to keep an eye on. So,
yep. And then from our first game of the week, from our Thursday night football game, Michael Gallup suffered a calf injury in the second half against the Bucs. He is currently placed on IR. He caught 4 passes for 36 yards. He actually looked a lot better than I expected him to, with Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb being there. I kind of expected him to not look as great as he did.
I don't think it was anything to do with him. It was more so just the fact that he was very clearly the third guy, but he was the third guy in a very talented room. But I think what Dallas showed us is they are not afraid to throw the ball 60 times a game if that's what it's going to take to narrowly lose to Tom Brady. So, it's a shame. I'm wondering how this is going to affect Dak, but likely not a lot. I think it's really just going to drive even more volume CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper's way, and possibly pave the way for a third guy to kind of break out a little bit of that offense.
Yeah, and the Cowboys, we kind of expect them to be throwing the ball a lot this week with they had another injury. Michael, you were reading me that one earlier.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God. You put me on the spot like that.
I'm sorry.
It's
I couldn't remember
Marcus Lawrence, defensive end. Yeah.
Yeah.
He's out.
He's out. They have a couple of notable injuries. And like I said, if you're one of the people that sat Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb, I definitely wouldn't do that this week. Especially because they'll both be getting, I expect, a little bit more targets with Gallup not there.
Also,
so if you
never sit Amari Cooper or CeeDee Lamb in fantasy.
No. And they'll always do well when they're on your bench. That's just kind of an unwritten rule of fantasy, is once you put a player on your bench, they they're allowed to go off, and they always do.
Yeah, the Cowboys were already undermanned on defense, and now they lose their best defensive player. I mean, teams are just going to have a field day putting up points against them, which just means that Dallas is going to need to keep passing. Dak is going to need to keep slinging the ball, and Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb are going to keep scoring fantasy points. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and with that, I think we're going to break down a couple of games. We chose 3 games to break down this week, and I'm going to go first with the game of the week, and I'm going to say maybe one of the better games that this year is going to see, and it was the Raiders and the Ravens game on Monday Night Football. Wild. Like, absolutely wild. It went into overtime. The final was 33-27 Raiders. The overtime touchdown was caught by Zay Jones. Yeah, right? That's Zay Jones.
Zay Jones.
Zay Jones. For some reason, when I said that, it like didn't sound right. But Zay Jones
probably because he caught a game-winning touchdown.
Yeah, right. I saw a tweet that was like, "Are the football gods playing like an intense game of bingo tonight?" Like Zay Jones. Did you guys have Zay Jones on your bingo card for catching the overtime game winner against the Ravens? Did you have that? I did.
I did. Yeah, I actually won a lot of money on it. So
yeah, you caught bingo.
Yep.
Long gone are the days of sports betting. We're now playing sports bingo. But Lamar Jackson, I see you over there.
That ain't
don't
it.
Make that face at me. Come on.
It
was a good one. It was a good one. I like it. I like sports bingo. That would be so fun. You don't think?
It sounds like even more randomness. If I want random and I want to be miserable over randomness, I'll just play fantasy football.
Yeah, I guess. Anyway, we'll start looking into the stats of this game. Lamar Jackson was 19 for 30 with 235 yards, 1 touchdown, and 2 fumbles. A couple of notable, we got to see week 1 Watkins, week 1 Sammy Watkins. Everyone clap it up. You should have had that on your bingo card. Sammy Watkins is known for performing in week 1. I actually started him in fantasy this week for that reason in Scott Fishbowl.
It was the most predictable, unpredictable game that you could predict out of an unpredictable player like Sammy Watkins.
Exactly.
And
so
you can
I started
quote me
him.
on that.
Yeah, I like it. Clip that. We're going to put it on the Twitter later. But I started Watkins in Scott Fishbowl this week, and I actually ended up winning because of this game. It was a roller coaster. So a couple other things from the Ravens offense. They really didn't use Mark Andrews. I was surprised. He had 3 receptions for 20 yards. I really expected them to use him a lot more than we saw. Tyson Williams, who was the 4th string, right? 4th or 3rd string?
Yeah, initially I'd say he was the 3rd. So he was behind J.K. Dobbins and Gus Edwards.
Yeah, so he came in even after the week of, playing catch-em-all Pokemon, but with running backs. Tyson Williams still started, and he actually had a pretty decent game. He had 9 carries for 65 yards with 1 touchdown, and he also had 3 receptions for 29 yards. The other running back that played was Latavius Murray, which is actually surprising because he was the last one to get there and the only other running back that was picked up to play.
Yeah, he was the only one that they actually signed onto the active roster, which I think says something for the future of his role. I mean, he ended up with more carries than Williams on a couple of days of practice. So
yeah, exactly. He had 10 carries for 28 yards and 1 touchdown. So both of them got a touchdown. Was there anything that surprised you specifically about the Ravens offense?
Lamar Jackson fumbling kind of surprised me. That's not something that he's been known to deal with a big amount. I feel like I hyper focus on that as an Eagles fan because that was a big storyline with Carson Wentz the past few years. And so the names you're always hearing about are Carson Wentz, Daniel Jones, and even with as much as Lamar Jackson is rushing the ball, he doesn't really have that much of a fumbling issue. And that's a big reason why they lost this game. It is what it is. But also, I think you kind of pointed right to it is Mark Andrews. He was kind of highlighted as the wide receiver 1, even as a tight end, and he always has been as long as he's been there for the most part with Lamar Jackson because he's acted as the alpha in that offense. He's gotten, a large target share in a low volume passing offense. So in a game like this, where it's coming down into overtime, you'd expect him to be used more. And I think that shocked me a little bit. And I'm wondering, I don't think I'm worried about Mark Andrews and his production this season, but I'm wondering if it might be a small change in the way that they're going to be running this offense, in terms of maybe it is going to focus a little more on guys like Hollywood Brown or Sammy Watkins or Rashad Bateman when he gets back.
Yeah, I do think having Rashad Bateman was something that I would have loved to see in this game. I think this is a game he would have really succeeded in. But yeah, I don't know. I expected more Mark Andrews in the red zone. I think that's one of the bigger things for me is Mark Andrews is like a big guy, a big red zone target, especially with Lamar Jackson that always catches heat for like not throwing the ball, especially in the red zone, and hearing all of the offseason talk about Lamar Jackson throwing the ball more, that we didn't see much Mark Andrews in the red zone. So that surprised me. But moving on to the Raiders offense, Derek Carr was 34 for 56 with 435 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 1 interception in overtime. Now that's almost what cost me my Scott Fishbowl win. So I have Derek Carr as my QB2. It's a super flex league, so I started Tannehill and Carr, and I only had like a 1% chance of winning this week. And I look as overtime is starting and I'm like winning. And then Derek Carr throws the interception and then I'm losing. And then in overtime, the Raiders thought they scored a touchdown. They didn't. They celebrated, had to come back on the field, and then didn't do anything with it. The Ravens got the ball, fumbled. The Raiders got the ball, and then they put out the field goal unit, and I was like, no. Like, that will lose me. I need Derek Carr to, like, make one more throw. And he did, and it was a touchdown. I ended up winning my league. But, yeah, that one interception almost cost me my Scott Fishbowl win.
And especially in a league like that with the most bizarre scoring rules where every incompletion is, negative points for a quarterback. So, literally, every time Derek Carr held the ball, you had to hold your breath thinking, is this going to help me or hurt me? It's not like, most leagues where, if I throw the ball into the dirt, that's not going to hurt me. So,
yeah. And especially in a league like this where playoffs start week 14, because there's so many people, there's like thousands of people in this league. So like one singular win will make the difference between if I like make playoffs or not. And especially in week 1, so good to have. So that made me feel good. But back to, I keep getting sidetracked. The Raiders offense, Darren Waller, man, he had 10 receptions for 105 yards and 1 touchdown, and they were basically feeding him all night. Like, Derek Carr was loving Darren Waller, even if he was in double coverage. Like, it was just Darren Waller all night. Josh Jacobs looked good, but you could see that Kenyon Drake did come in for specifically a lot more for pass catching. He had 5 receptions for 59 yards. And that's kind of a little bit scary if you have Josh Jacobs in fantasy football. Like, I understand Jacobs looks to be, at least of week 1, is more just the straight up rushing running back, but it's still taking touches away, especially having drafted Josh Jacobs where he was being drafted. What was he, like round 4 or 5, somewhere around there? So that's pretty decent draft capital to have spent on a running back who might lose touches. And I mean, Kenyon Drake looked good too, so that's always an issue.
So I do want to. I think the big thing there, and the reason I'm not too worried about that, is because for the first time in Josh Jacobs' career, it actually is built into his draft capital. In years past, he's been a first, a second, early third round running back at the latest, and it was in spite of the fact that he was not getting the receiving work that most people assumed he would get coming out of college, being heavily utilized as a receiving back and having that profile. I was never in on him because it never seemed like John Gruden was going to give him that work that makes him so valuable for fantasy. But for the first time in his career, we can get him in the 4th and 5th round, or we could have if this, were draft season still. And at that price, again, I'm not normally drafting a running back there because I would rather get the true workhorse running backs, but knowing the amount of volume he's going to get and the high likelihood he has for a touchdown on any given week comparatively to other running backs, for the first time, the fact that he doesn't catch the ball makes him less expensive. And it feels like we finally admitted that Gruden is not going to give him the ball in the passing game. Like, good Lord, we've finally just come around to figuring that out. It just, and it finally, now it doesn't feel horrible to spend an early round pick on Josh Jacobs because you don't have to.
Yeah, you can never really predict what Gruden's going to do. Gruden this week said that Darren Waller is the best player he ever coached.
Yeah.
Wild.
John Gruden is something else, man.
There's also a quote he had from this game, and I'll quote it. It says, quote, "Felt like I died and woke up and died and woke up again. I was like a cat. I had multiple lives."
Like, what was he doing during the game? Like, was he snorting cocaine on the sideline? Like, what do you mean you died? You're the one calling the plays.
It was opening night in Allegiant Stadium, so I don't know that that's out of the question.
But he's just like, dude, what are you talking about?
I wish I knew.
Like, I get it. It was an exciting game, but what?
Yeah, I really do wish I knew. That quote, though, like, is going to go on my list of, like, best quotes from the season. I think I like that one a lot. That is a great quote. A couple more quick stats. Raiders were 7 out of 15, and Ravens were 3 out of 12 for third down efficiency. Ravens had a lot more rushing yards. We expected that going into the game. With Lamar Jackson being a rusher, kind of with this whole offense in a giant injury whirlwind, that they were kind of just going to play it safe. And Lamar Jackson's not the most well-known to throw the ball the entire game, so we expected the Ravens to outrush the Raiders. And the Raiders had like 90 more passing yards than the Ravens did. So a lot about that is not as surprising to me. One stat that was really awesome from Next Gen Stats is that the Raiders pressured Lamar Jackson on 54.5% of his dropbacks tonight. So 18 pressures on 33 dropbacks, and that's their highest pressure in a game in the Next Gen Stats era. So that's since 2016. And that's a huge improvement for the Raiders defense. The Raiders defense really needed to get better at pass rushing, and you could see it this game. Those fumbles from Lamar Jackson, just the way the game played out, that pass rush played a huge difference in the outcome of this game.
Yeah, and they did that without their former, 4th overall pick, Clelin Ferrell, who was inactive.
Yeah.
If I'm a Raiders fan, I don't know how I feel about that front office. It feels like every week they're cutting, or they're, they have a healthy scratch for a former top pick. And it's just, I don't know where the confidence would come from, because I mean, obviously you pull out the win, and exactly what you said, they pressured Lamar Jackson better than they have in a long time. It's just so confusing how they can draft that poorly. And then
I would love to see them on Hard Knocks. I really would. Like, come on, give me some more behind the scenes insight into what the hell goes on over there.
I just want to know what made him die and then wake up again, and then die and then wake up again. But I really think we missed the boat with Hard Knocks in Vegas, because if you're ever going to do it, you're going to do it the Antonio Brown year. So, yeah. But, Gruden makes for good TV, so I'd take that any year.
Yeah, but speaking of good TV, that was a Monday night game. So, for the first time, we had the Manning broadcast on ESPN2. And for those of you that don't know what it is, Eli and Peyton Manning were basically broadcasters for the night. It was just the two of them, kind of talking football while the game played in the background. And kind of the gist of it was to get more of a player perspective on broadcasting, rather than just have a regular broadcast like with Tony Romo there, like one player. It was the two players, so Eli and Peyton, and it was absolutely amazing.
I couldn't agree more.
So good. It was just something about it. Like, it was very lighthearted. Like, it was fun to watch. Like, I was cracking up 3/4 of the time. Eli Manning's fire alarm goes off halfway through the game, and he's just sitting there letting it go off. And everyone's like, "Did you forget your dinner in the oven? Like, go turn it off." And he's
that's Eli's entire career.
That's what everybody said, was like, this is how he won 2 Super Bowls.
Because I mean, he just watched everything kind of get burned down around him. He's just like, all right, yeah, let's go, guys. Time to play some more football. It's just he's chilling. Meanwhile, it felt like an SNL special from inside their house while watching a football game.
That is the perfect way to describe it. Like, Peyton Manning putting on the helmet that didn't fit on his head and flapping his arms like a bird. I don't think SNL could write that better.
No.
So good. And the really fun part of it too is that for hardcore football fans like ourselves, it was really awesome to kind of get more than a surface level analysis on the game. So you could see that they were kind of bouncing ideas off of each other and like, what would you do here and what's running through your head, and talking about, counting players and trying to read the defense and stuff like that, where regular broadcasts throughout the years were awesome, but I felt like that piece was kind of always missing. But I understand why they can't do that, is because you have a lot of casual fans who only tune into their team's game and they don't want to be kind of talked at. So having a secondary broadcast like this was absolutely amazing. And watching them in overtime, they also had guests, and their guest for overtime was Russell Wilson.
Yep.
So the Mannings and Russell Wilson sitting there in overtime, in this crazy overtime that was like, we won, no, we didn't, we got another chance, we lost it, they got it, they fumbled. Like, watching their emotional roller coaster that we were on with them, like throwing their heads back and putting their hand on their hands and like cheering when they won and hands up in the air and screaming and yelling. It was so fun. It felt like you were watching a game with your buddies, like, who just know football better than you do.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest thing is, like, I feel like everyone has given ESPN a lot of flack, myself included, about the choices they've made about their broadcasters the past few years, because Monday Night Football is so great. It's like, it's because it's on Monday night. It's just like it's an event within itself within football. And they've just had the crappiest broadcasters. And Booger was terrible. I can't stress that enough. He was horrible. And now finally, it's almost like they're not giving up the traditional broadcast, but they just add on this extra thing with two of the smartest minds in football, and in the most relaxed way possible. And I think the way you put it was perfect, where it's like you're watching football with them. They're sitting in their living rooms. They're watching the game. They're not talking about every play. They don't have a play-by-play guy where they're like, this is what just happened, even though you just watch it. They're going in the more in-depth things. They're talking about, why maybe they're using this offensive concept, or why we're seeing this offensive concept that we saw earlier, but how it differs and what they were able to do using that, and how they're setting up the defense, or how, what they're doing on offense is how it's being combated on defense, and stuff like that a lot of the time we just don't know. Like, you see it all the time on Twitter where, fans are harassing or whatever about a specific play from the past week. It's like, oh, this guy screwed up. And then you see an NFL player, a former NFL player, like, tweet out, like, look, you don't understand what you're looking at. That was not his job to block that guy, or something like that. His job was to let him go by. Someone else screwed up. Like, we don't know that. And it's so cool to be able to get that firsthand experience from guys that truly understand the game better than probably a lot of guys playing it right now. Because, at least like with Peyton Manning, he might be the smartest quarterback that's ever lived. Like, he just understands the game on such another level, and it's so fun to have them both there.
Yeah, and then the contrast when they had Kelsey on was awesome. Kelsey was like, they're like, come on, the plays that you run don't look like we could write them in a playbook. Like, what's that about? And Kelsey's like, yeah, sometimes I just like look over my shoulder, give Pat the look, and say, yeah, I'm about to just make some stuff up right here. And then that turns into them creating plays off of the stuff that Kelsey's making up, and running fake routes and kind of playing Madden in his head. Like, I don't know. So the contrast there was hilarious. But yeah, I will watch. The last thing I'll say is that I will watch the Manning broadcast every Monday night. I think, except for the night my team is on there. But the thing is, like, I want to watch them when the Giants are on there, but it was a little bit distracting, but in a good way. Like, that's why I loved it. But I would kind of have to see how it is when my team's playing, if I could still focus completely on the game, or like if the broadcast deters from that.
I would definitely prefer it just in the general sense of I'm watching football, not I'm watching a team that I actively root for and care about, where this is going to affect my mental health if they do poorly. So, yeah. But that'll take us into our next game, which did not have the Manning brothers, but was Sunday Night Football, and it was the Rams versus the Bears. So this was actually a few players made their debuts on their new teams. One of them is Matt Stafford, and the other one is Andy Dalton, unfortunately. But we also saw a little bit of Justin Fields, which was surprising, and I will touch on a little bit later, I believe, in this podcast. But yeah, it was a great game if you're a Rams fan. And really, honestly, I've never been a Rams fan, even generally speaking. I haven't really enjoyed rooting for them over the past couple of years. But Matthew Stafford is just such a likable guy. And it's so nice to see him finally in a place where it's not Detroit, is really what I'm trying to say. It's a good team, good management, competent ownership. They're not squabbling with their former wide receiver over $1 million. That is basically pocket change. And it was just incredible. And Matthew Stafford showed out. I mean, I think his first or second pass was like a bomb to Van Jefferson, second-year wide receiver. Cooper Kupp was fed all night. He looked incredible. And apparently they get breakfast together. Matthew Stafford and Cooper Kupp, they come in early every morning. They get breakfast together. I would love to be their friend. They just sound like such good people.
I've always wanted to be friends with Cooper Kupp, and now that Stafford's there with them and then they eat breakfast together, like I would love to have a bowl of cereal or some waffles and just chill and hang out one morning in the practice field.
I bet Matt Stafford eats like a really big breakfast. That's like very beside the point, like not like offensive line level, but like I've seen the man chug a beer, and it's like I feel like he could definitely put down like just like a massive breakfast every morning. But yeah, anyway, Matthew Stafford looked healthy, which was good to see. He looked like he fit right into that offense. And it was nice, again, in a different light, to see Sean McVay with a guy that we know is a great quarterback. Matthew Stafford is a great quarterback, and he has been for his entire career. And he was very successful in spite of a lot of things in Detroit. Jared Goff, I think, was very much carried by Sean McVay. I think he's good, but I don't think he was ever going to be the reason they win games. And I'm not saying Matt Stafford was the reason they won this game, but he definitely wasn't the reason they might have lost. I mean, Matt Stafford went out there, did exactly what he was supposed to do. They put up 34 points, and it never really felt like a game. The defense looked incredible, just as we kind of expected it. They were the number 1 ranked defense last year, and Matthew Stafford was just firing on all cylinders with this offense. You saw Cooper Kupp involved, Van Jefferson, Robert Woods, even Deshaun Jackson a little bit, which was nice to see him healthy. And then Tyler Higbee also got some targets. So you saw that whole offense. Oh, and Darrell Henderson, of course, actually had a really solid game. And I think only lost 1 carry to Sony Michel on the whole night. Which was
Sony
great
Michel did nothing.
Which I don't think will probably keep itself like that. I think Sony Michel will get worked into the offense and begin to take a little bit of the early down work from Darrell Henderson. But, it was still nice to see Darrell Henderson produce and be efficient and have a good game overall. And then on the other side, you have the Bears. The one good thing I can say about them is Dave Montgomery looked incredible.
Yes.
Like, I think it was one of his first runs on that first drive where I think he juked a guy or two and took it for like over 10 yards. And I was watching it and I audibly gasped. I was like, wow, that dude looks really, really good. Like, against a really good defense, David Montgomery is a very good NFL running back. This is not a guy that is just going to get a crap ton of carries and is going to be effective by pure volume. He is effective because of his ability to just juke defenders and get out of their way. He had a touchdown. He was not very involved in the passing game. Damian Williams did really handle a lot of that work. I don't know how that's going to continue necessarily, but David Montgomery looked incredible, and I would be thrilled to have him on fantasy teams. I actually have him on a lot of them. Andy Dalton did not look good. He looked pretty bad. He was 27 for 38, which is fine. Only 200 yards, an interception, no touchdowns, and he fumbled the ball. In fantasy, in like regular half-point scoring, he actually scored less than Justin Fields, who attempted 2 passes and had 1 carry for a touchdown. Allen Robinson.
Yeah, that's crazy. When you put it like that, like I knew he looked bad, but when you say it like that, wow.
It's just not good. I wish that Matt Nagy would get over himself or whatever promises he made to Andy Dalton. Like, I feel like we're back in the NBA draft where, you can promise a guy that you'll pick him in the 20s and then you kind of have to, if he's there, you have to trade stuff for him. Like, dude, you don't owe Andy Dalton anything.
I saw somebody tweet like a tweet or something that was like, Andy Dalton must know where the bodies are buried. Like, there's no way. Like, he has to know where the bodies are buried in order for Nagy to keep him on the field when he like looked like that. And like, even like you said, like the attempts to completions rate wasn't that bad. He didn't have many yards, and it's just like you could just tell that it wasn't working with the offense is what it was. Like, okay, you're like, sometimes the numbers don't accurately reflect what happens on the field, but it just looked like it was not working with the offense anymore.
Yeah, he just didn't look good. And it was tough because Allen Robinson is such a good wide receiver. He had 6 receptions and only 35 yards. That's miserable. Darnell Mooney, there were no deep shots that were taken. And the dude is just a monster down the field. He had 7 targets, which was kind of crazy. I mean, I guess not. There wasn't really a ton of involvement with other guys, but I mean, he had on those 5 catches, he had 26 yards. So this offense just looks stale outside of David Montgomery, really. Cole Kmet was involved. Thankfully, Jimmy Graham wasn't. But man, I just hope that they can just suck it up and put Justin Fields in soon. You know, I'm going to talk about this a little bit later when we get to surprising players, but I think I'm just going to do it now. I'm just surprised that they even put him on the field. I was watching the game with a friend of mine who went to Ohio State, a big Justin Fields fan. And, you know, I told him, I was like, yeah, like, you're probably not going to see Justin Fields tonight. Like, unless something goes horribly wrong with Andy Dalton, I don't think you're going to see Justin Fields, because there's not been any talk about, you know, in the way that Trey Lance or Jalen Hurts has in the past, like coming on for like gadget plays here or there, like special packages. There hasn't been talk like that. I didn't think they viewed Justin Fields like that. And then on the first drive, he came in, I think, for like a play or two in between the first 2 drives. And one play, he literally just took the snap and passed the ball. Like, it wasn't a fake handoff or anything. It's just like, you just put him out there to play quarterback. Just let him play quarterback, because he looked better on that pass than Andy Dalton did all night. Like, Good Lord, Matt Nagy, what are you doing?
And it sucks for him, right? Like, you're drafted as high as you are, and it's not even like you're running a full package. Like, it's like, screw it. Like, go hand the ball off. Like, let's see what you could do. Like, it's not even like, let's see what you could do. Go try and throw a touchdown. Like, it was like, go hand the ball off and see what happens, I guess. You know, like, I don't know. It kind of seems like such a waste of talent, like, to have to use him. And I don't even want to call it situational, because it wasn't like it was like a dire situation. Like, it was just weird in general.
Yep.
And I simply don't understand what was going through his head.
I've never really understood what's going through Matt Nagy's head. I don't think anyone really has. I'm praying for his sake that he just will put Justin Fields in sooner rather than later. Stop playing around. Andy Dalton does not need to play anymore. You know what you have in him. For the sake of everyone and all that is good, just put Justin Fields on the field.
Yeah. And then one other thing I wanted to say about the game is you talked about Cooper Kupp a little bit, and I think that was my favorite part. Cooper Kupp has long since been one of my favorite players. I have him in everywhere I can, except for my family league, because nobody will, the person who has him won't trade me for him. And I love Cooper Kupp. I love having him on my fantasy teams. I love watching him play. And that's why I like having him on my fantasy teams. He's just a really fun player to watch. And I really enjoy that. And just watching him light it up with Stafford was amazing. And it's something that I had been talking about a lot in the offseason, is a lot of people were like, I don't know, like, new quarterback, we're not sure how this is going to work out. And the thing is, with Stafford there, like, Stafford loves slot receivers. Like, he pushed Golden Tate to like have the best year of his life when he was in the slot with Stafford. Cooper Kupp is always open. Like, Cooper Kupp is open on over 50% of the throws that are like thrown his way. And averages like an extra 4 yards after the catch above average. So Cooper Kupp is like the receiver of like Stafford's dreams. And it was just something that I could see coming from a mile away, that the way Stafford plays ball and the way Cooper Kupp catches those balls, like, was going to mesh so beautifully. And watching it happen on the field was like chef's kiss, amazing. And I loved every second of it.
Yeah. Cooper Kupp was awesome. Matt Stafford was great. This next game was not as great. Well, actually, the score was higher, but it was 2 of the worst teams in the NFL. So why don't you tell me a little bit about the Texans and what you saw?
Yeah, the Texans, the final score of that game was 37-21 Texans. So that was surprising. We knew that we weren't really expecting much from the Jags, but I think a lot of us were expecting kind of less from the Texans, especially in the offseason, like not even really hearing much about like what they were doing, like besides like everything with Deshaun Watson. I feel like we didn't really get much from the Texans this offseason. So there was a lot of questions that this game kind of established a little bit. And the first one was like, we had so many questions about the Texans backfield. And like, we were like, which one's going to be the number one? You know, are they going to run it by committee? And the answer was all of them. Like every last one of them did very well. Even in fantasy too. Like they did the Texans running backs did very well this year. Do you have the numbers for that, or I can pull them up?
Yeah, so Mark Ingram was the lead back. I mean, yes. he was the first and second down back. He had 26 carries, which is just ridiculous. 85 yards and a touchdown. David Johnson was mainly he was the only one that actually notched a reception. He had 3 carries for 10 yards, but he had 3 receptions on 4 targets for 18 yards and a touchdown. So not overly efficient there, but he's the one that's going to get the pass down work. And Phil Lindsay I think it was kind of deceiving fantasy wise because he had a touchdown, but outside of the touchdown, he was only 8 for 25. And then Rex Burkhead actually had a reception as well for 6 yards. But Mark Ingram seems like the guy to own in fantasy, honestly. Because I guess if you're going to get 26 carries, no matter what team you're on, you probably want to be rostering them. So,
yeah, when he was on the field, somebody was like, "Who is that?" And they were like, Mark Ingram, like, come on. And then he kept going and going and going, and everyone's like, wait. I had like 20 people at my house this weekend, and they were like Mark Ingram, really? Like, I don't even think I would have picked that to happen.
That's what we've been, that's what we've been dreaming on all off season. This Texans offense, baby.
It was the offense of our dreams. I feel like we don't talk enough about Tyrod Taylor being stabbed in the lungs last year, having a lung punctured by the doctor.
Justin Herbert being really good definitely kind of pushed that storyline to the side a little bit. Coming out and winning Rookie of the Year was made it a lot easier to forget about Tyrod Taylor being stabbed in the lungs, unfortunately for Tyrod Taylor. But he's a good quarterback. He's fine.
Yeah, he was 21 for 33 with 291 yards and 2 touchdowns. So that's not a bad game. Like I was impressed with how Tyrod Taylor looked yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, especially considering what we were expecting, which was like we said, the Texans offense. Yeah. I mean, he also had 4 carries for 40 yards, which is a thing that you love to get out of your quarterback, especially, fantasy wise. Like he's probably going to be a quarterback 2 in super flex leagues if you're starting him. And he's going to be startable most weeks because they're going to be down a lot. I say that as they won the game to 37-21. I think they led the entire game. But they're going to be down more often than not, most likely. And he's going to give you that rushing baseline that's going to give him a safe floor in fantasy. And they're probably going to be slinging it because they're going to be losing a lot. Yeah, he looked good. I just, I wonder kind of how long it's going to last. It kind of has like the Ryan Fitzpatrick effect of like a journeyman quarterback. And it's like, oh, they look great for a couple games at a time. Like, it's not their next franchise quarterback. So.
Yeah. And if I was a Texans fan, the one win is not making me think I'm winning a Super Bowl.
If I'm a Texans fan, it's the least of my worries.
Yeah. But the Jags.
I hate Urban Meyer. I hate him.
Me too. He's really scaring me.
I'm not even scared of him. I just hate him.
I'm not scared of him. I'm scared of what he's gonna do to me.
I know, but he's already doing
football. It. Yeah,
that's the thing. It's kind of like, if a guy was walking around with a knife and a Michael Myers mask, I'm scared of that. What that guy might do to me. No, this dude already stabbed me in the chest. He's already done it. I already know what's happening. He's going to keep stabbing me all season long by giving Carlos Hyde, 9 carries to James Robinson's 5. Dude, what is your problem with James Robinson? My God, the dude, yeah, I get it. He had 90% of snaps, 90% of touches last year for the majority of the season. Like, he wasn't always the most efficient on, I don't know, the worst offense in the NFL last year, but he was impressive for an undrafted free agent rookie to rush for over 1,000 yards. Like, yeah, he did it on insane volume, but he also did it on a crappy offense. Like, I don't understand what everybody's seeing. Like, the dude is a moron. I don't know how he has a job in the NFL.
James Robinson last year only had like 0.4 yards less than Derrick Henry in yards after contact.
Yeah.
Like, James Robinson is so good.
He's a great running back. He's a great player. I said this after they drafted Travis Etienne. Like, if they traded James Robinson, he would be a starter on probably like 20 NFL rosters.
Yep.
More realistically, he'd be the top. He'd be like a very, very valuable backup on probably just about any roster, and he could definitely start for a lot of them. But I guess it's great that he had 6 targets. Like, Trevor Lawrence isn't going to be afraid to dump him the ball. Like, Carlos Hyde only had 2, but
take one guess where Carlos Hyde went to college.
Oh, I know exactly why Urban Meyer likes Carlos Hyde.
Because he went to Ohio State.
It's because he coached him, and it's the dumbest thing ever. Carlos Hyde is washed. He's old for a running back, and he's washed. Get him off the field. Give him 3 carries a game if that's what you really need to get you to sleep at night, and give James Robinson the rock like 15 to 20 times a game to make Trevor Lawrence, your franchise quarterback, make his life easier. Because this offense sucks. The defense sucks. The team sucks. You suck, Urban Meyer. So do something right and use the players that you have that are good and take pressure off of your franchise quarterback that may be scarred by the end of the season because of how bad of a job you're going to do. I'm talking directly to you, Urban.
Yeah. There's a lot of talk that the USC job opened up and everyone's like, oh no, Urban's health is coming. So everyone's like, maybe he'll leave. And Urban Meyer this week said, I'm not leaving. I'm dedicated to here. I'm staying. But the Jags in general were less than impressive. Trevor Lawrence had a lot of yards, yes, but he was 28 for 51 with 332 yards, 3 touchdowns, and 3 interceptions. Like, so the yards are deceiving, but the attempts to completions and the touchdown to interception ratio is a little bit alarming against the Texans. Like, it's not like you went up against an insanely high-powered defense and an insane team. Like, the Texans defense is good. We've talked about that. But I am way less than impressed with how the entire offense looked. I mean, even we were talking about, so DJ Chark did all right. Like, even there was so much talk about Laviska Shenault was going to have an amazing game 1. He really didn't. Like, I'm just overall not thrilled with how they looked.
No, I mean, DJ Chark had 12 targets and 86 yards and a touchdown. What that doesn't tell you is that he had 3 catches on 12 targets. That is horrible. That's I'm not great at math, but I'm pretty sure that's a 25% catch rate. That's really bad. In all honesty, like, fantasy-wise, the majority of the season, I think that Marvin Jones, DJ Chark, and Laviska Shenault will all probably be somewhat fantasy viable on a week-to-week basis, because there's going to be, Trevor Lawrence threw the ball 51 times. Like, yeah, it might be really ugly sometimes, but chances are that they're all going to get a decent amount of targets. Laviska Shenault will get he didn't have a great game. I think it's really because he lacked the touchdown. But he had the most receptions of any of them, plus a carry. And I think what it really comes down to is there's going to be enough volume to go around to at least make them somewhat fantasy relevant, or maybe 2 out of 3 of them every week, where this team is just going to be so bad they're going to have to throw the ball. And God knows they won't, hand the ball up to James Robinson. So,
yeah, I don't know. Like, I have James Robinson in a lot of fantasy leagues, and I'm worried about starting him. Like, especially my family league, like that I really need to win next week, like this coming week. And I'm kind of worried about starting James Robinson in fantasy. Like, in the leagues where I drafted him high, I know I need to play him. With my family league, it's pretty shallow. I have decent enough backups that are still starters. But I don't know. Like I'm worried about kind of starting any one of these guys. Like you said that there is fantasy points to go around, but it's going to be like pick and choose them on what week is who's going to be who's backfield and who's going to be catching receptions.
Yeah, it's going to be miserable to watch all year. That's for sure. Everyone's going to be miserable. Jags fans, NFL fans, James Robinson fans.
Yeah. Well,
Urban
tell me
Meyer
something
fans.
that didn't make you miserable. Tell me something that you were impressed with this week.
Sure. Kenny Gainwell. He's a guy, I'm assuming you meant around the whole NFL, not specifically with the Jags. Okay, great. Yeah, because nothing was really impressive to me about the Jags. Kenny Gainwell. He surprised me a lot. Like, obviously I'm an Eagles fan. I paid more attention to that game than I did most games, but Kenny Gainwell was in for the entire 2-minute drill. Boston Scott, he's been the backup to Miles Sanders for the last few years, with the exception of the Jordan Howard timeshare bit. But Boston Scott's been an efficient and effective backup, and he didn't get a single snap, I don't think. I know he at least didn't get a touch, but Kenny Gainwell had a touchdown. He was in for the entire 2-minute drill. He was in on a lot of passing downs. He had a really impressive game for like a 4th or 5th round rookie. He had 9 carries and 3 targets. And that might not sound like much, but as a backup running back, that's not bad at all. Especially knowing that a lot of his touches are most likely going to be in the passing game, or at least I don't think they're going to be keyed in on the run game when Kenny Gainwell is in there. So that really surprised me. I did not expect to see that much Kenny Gainwell out of the gate. I expected him to kind of ease into that role throughout the season and really become the true backup to Miles Sanders later in the season. But the dude walked in, he looked like he belonged. He didn't struggle either. He had 37 yards on those 9 carries and a touchdown. He looked impressive in the touches that he got, and that was just as important to me. So it really surprised me that we were able to see that right away. And also, I think it brought a little bit more clarity to the fantasy backfield and the fantasy implications of the Eagles running backs, because Miles Sanders got 15 carries. He had 5 targets. Kenny Gainwell got the rest of the work. It's a 2-man backfield, and that just makes things simple and easy for fantasy. And I think that's what a lot of people, that's what I want, is if I can make it that simple and clean, then, that's perfect.
Yeah, he looked really good. And I will say, like you said, like your expectations were not as high. And I think that comes with where he was drafted too. And he performed better than I think pretty much anybody would have expected him to. Like you said, I was leaning on exactly the way you were, that it was going to be a much more ease into this. And it wasn't. And I'm happy it wasn't, because he, like you said, he looked really good doing it.
It was nice.
It was. But for me, one of the craziest things was Jameis Winston, man, looked so good. Post LASIK eye surgery, Jameis is my best friend. In my head, Jameis. Did you see the quote from him after the game? That was like, they had asked him like what they did to be able to win that game. And in case you didn't know the score of that, it was Saints 38, Packers 3.
Like everyone predicted.
Exactly. We expected Juwan Johnson to completely go off. I mean, come on, this is exactly what everyone expected. Fantasy bingo cards, week 1 fantasy bingo. But he had a quote after the game that somebody had asked him, like, oh, what did you do to, come out here and look this good? And he says, we were just prepared, man. Like my trainer told me, what did he say? He just told me to be prepared, right? Like he is just comical without even trying. And anyway, back to the football parts of it. He was 14 for 20 for 148 yards, 5 touchdowns.
Insane.
And 0 interceptions.
That's maybe even crazier than 5 touchdowns on less than 150 yards. After
Jameson completed his 30 for 30 quest of touchdowns to interceptions last year, he had 5 touchdowns to 0 interceptions this game. He just looked absolutely stellar. Taysom only came in he threw 1 pass and carried the ball twice, and that was what he did all game. I mean, it was Jameis, the Jameis show. Now, a couple of things that surprised me from that game in general is that a lot of us were talking about Marcus Callaway. He really did nothing. He caught one pass for one reception for 14 yards. And that was about it. But Juwan Johnson had 2 touchdowns. Deontay Harris had a touchdown. Chris Hogan had a touchdown. And Alvin Kamara had a touchdown. So those are where your touchdowns came from. But I don't know, man. It was just something about Jameis Winston. He looked so confident. He looked so good. And I will say a lot of it, I like the way Sean Payton develops quarterbacks. Like, he is very good at it and very good at supporting them. And I think that has a lot to do with it. But Jameis was highly efficient, was very good. And I don't know. There's not much more you can say. I mean, the game in general was surprising. I mean, Aaron Rodgers looked not good at all. And
Jordan Love played.
Yes.
That in itself
when I said that out loud to the people I had at my house, everybody stood up and was like, wait, repeat that again. Jordan Love came in at the end of the game because that's how bad Aaron Rodgers looked.
Yep.
And Jameis
the game was over.
But I mean, even still, you brought Jordan Love in behind Aaron Rodgers, and Jameis Winston threw 5 touchdowns with 0 interceptions. That was just surprising to me.
Real quick comment question, just because I see it and I'm intrigued by it, so I'm going to answer it like I did last week. I'm just going to interrupt the entire flow of the podcast.
Except last week's question was about Juwan Johnson.
I know, yeah. Look at that. So I guess next week we're going to be talking about Mike Williams, because someone on YouTube asked, should I drop Boyd for Mike Williams? Yes. I love Mike Williams. I think he got exactly the type of targets and type of looks in this offense that I think we've been wanting him to get for a while, especially with a guy that's willing to sling it like Justin Herbert. You have to kind of pray or close your eyes every time he falls to the ground because he high points every ball that's ever been thrown to him, and then he falls like 10 feet to land on his back. So don't watch him play, but yes, pick him up. I still like Tyler Boyd. I think he's got a safe floor, but I think that it's clear that Jamar Chase remembers how to catch a football, and that's all that really needed to happen for Tyler Boyd to be on the outs in, at least in terms of fantasy relevance. Shout out to Jameis Winston for throwing 5 touchdowns on under 150 yards. I don't think that'll ever happen again.
That's hard to do. We say that a lot. Like, every time we say stats like this, you and I, our quote is, that's hard to do. That is hard to do. Like, you have
hard to play football.
I could imagine.
But yeah.
But you get what I'm saying.
No, I'm with you. I'm with you. It's hard for professionals to do. It's impossible for us to do. It's hard for professionals to do.
What do you mean? I think I scored more fantasy points than Ronald Jones did this week.
Look, all I'm saying, I also had more rushing yards than Reggie Bush in his final season in the NFL. It's one of my favorite stats.
I'm very proud of you.
Yeah, it was great. No, I play football once a year, and then I'm sore for about 2 weeks after. So
is it on Thanksgiving?
It's the day after, Black Friday.
There we go.
Yeah, we wake up. We play a half. I throw up. I play the second half. And then I go and I drink beer, and then I spend the next week not being able to walk. It's great.
Now, are you throwing
of my life?
Are you throwing up from being out of shape, or are you throwing up from being hungover from Thanksgiving?
Out of shape. Of shape. Yeah, no. It has nothing to do with alcohol. Has 100% to do with me being in the best shape of my life at 25 years old. So
Regina just said, did you get an ACL tear doing it?
I don't know, honestly.
Honestly, no. He has he has a Liz Frank injury.
Yeah, I think so. My body, it's not like it's in good shape to begin with. So like me getting injured, like what am I really going to do to be able to tell that I'm injured? I don't know. I'll just message our doc over at the Undroppables, Jose. Shout out Jose. And he'll tell me that there's probably something wrong with me, and then I'll move on with my life. So
when we were prepping for this podcast, we were talking about the ETN news, and we were kind of just running through a couple scenarios. We were talking about the ETN news, and Dunks thought he had a Liz Frank injury. And then, because I was describing what a Liz Frank injury was, and then he was like, no, I have a Liz Frank injury, and couldn't tell how. So then as soon as we hung up on StreamYard, Jose and Dunks were in the chat talking about a Liz Frank injury, and the doc has thinks it's not a Liz Frank injury. So
no,
I don't know.
It's in the wrong part of my foot or something.
I think you're just getting old.
Yeah, it's great. You know, we talk about, I called Carlos Hyde old earlier, and he's like 33 and could bench press me 1,000 times. Like it's, Also, if you were watching the video and saw me break down mentally right there, that was because of a comment we received in YouTube about thoracic outlet syndrome from Jacob Rossi. For those of you not Philadelphia fans and that are not miserable for their entire lives, that is what Markelle Fultz had when he forgot how to shoot after we drafted him first overall. That's some basketball for you. Back to football. But
it's not the first time you switched sports on me.
I know. I think I did baseball last week, which is slightly more bizarre. I follow basketball a lot closer. It has almost the impact on my mental health that football has. Close, not there. There's more going on for sure because we're Philadelphia and we have a GM that likes to use burner accounts, and all of our number 1 overall picks forget or won't shoot. So, you know, it's great. It's good, okay. Yeah. We won. We're 1-0, top of the NFC. So that's all that matters right now. But I think it is time for our draft. We've reached the 1 hour mark, so we're closing out. So as an update for last week, while Ashley joins me in this draft, Ashley beat me.
I did.
That
big
hurt.
Brain.
Yeah, it was Travis Kelce. And also the surprising competence of my Eagles defense stopped me from winning because Kyle Pitts did nothing and Calvin Ridley didn't really do much after the first drive. So, I'm looking to get a win this. I did play myself. You know, I'll take it every week if me losing means that the Eagles did something right. So, So I'm going to share my screen here while.
Yes, and then once you do, I will join the draft.
I mean, you can join now. It gives us like a minute before it actually starts anyway. But yeah, so I'm hoping to get a win this week because, well, I don't want to be miserable and I don't want to be 0-2.
I'm just going to keep kicking your butt and then I'm going to have $1 million in underdog.
Yeah, as you can see, I have $45 in my account. So all $45 of those will be yours by the end of this season, I guess. But you are going to have the... Pick. Yeah. Did you have it last? Yeah, you had it last time too, didn't you?
I did.
This is crap.
I did. I feel like we need to make new rules. Like we should not.
Well, like I said, we'll change it up. Maybe we'll add a third person. Maybe we'll do some different slates. This is again the NFL Sunday 1:00 slate, which I think it has the 1:00 and the 4:00 games all in it. So. It's the main slate, but you have the number 1 overall pick. Do you want to talk to us about where you might be going with that? And again, I think this is quarterback, running back, wide receiver, tight end, flex, as a reminder, as the starting lineup.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go actually quarterback. I think I really want to take Kyler Murray. I was just so impressed with the way he looked. His ability to complete plays, even while the pocket's collapsing, and get out of there. Literally like tiny little man running through little holes, and he looked so good doing it. And Kyler Murray, go for a new approach.
Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm going to take Christian McCaffrey this week because I don't want to lose. And Christian McCaffrey, he was the number 1 overall running back last week and didn't score a touchdown.
Yeah, it's such a cheat code. It's so annoying.
He's ridiculous. He was like a few yards short of 100 and 100 on the week, which is just. It's ridiculous how easy it seems for him to be able to do that. And then with my second pick, I'm going to take DeAndre Hopkins. So I'm going to counter your Kyler Murray pick a little bit because that Vikings defense looked horrendous against Joe Burrow, T. Higgins, and Jamar Chase. And DeAndre Hopkins had a great week last week, and I think Kyler's just going to keep tossing him the rock. So when you get Kyler points, hopefully I'm going to get some DeAndre Hopkins points.
And where you get D-Hop points, I will get Travis Kelce points.
Gosh, dang it. I was hoping he'd come back to me.
And then, I also wasn't impressed with the Ravens defense that much yesterday. And I think I'll ride with Alvin Kamara. Yeah, let's do it. I am. That's a little bit, Jameis looked so good that I almost don't want to take a running back. But, I mean, he like that. I wouldn't want to take Kamara, but he even got a touchdown out of it, even with Jameis absolutely tossing him in the end zone. And his was actually a reception for a touchdown. So who knows?
I am going to go with rookie running back Najee Harris. Oh, wait, am I?
Really?
Yep, I am. Yeah, so this is a little bit of I want to just speak it into existence. I want to show that I'm confident in him as a player. I'm not worried about what happened last week. He got an insane amount of volume, and I believe he was the only running back that was on the field, really. I forget the exact stat. It had something to do with touches, but I just thought that he played not a great game, but no one really did. So, yeah, I'm going to take him. And then I'm also going to take Justin Jefferson for the same reason, because I think that he's going to bounce back this week against an Arizona team that looked good on defense, but I don't think they're going to look that good again. I'm confident in Justin Jefferson going forward. This is just a little bit of, again, like Najee Harris, I'm not that worried about him. I'm confident that offense as a whole is going to bounce back. Not bounce back because Adam Thielen had a great week, but I think that it's not, going to write him off.
Yeah. I did already take DK Metcalf. Last week was kind of Tyler Lockett's week, and they always switch on and off, so I'm going with that. And I'm going with Cooper Kupp because I always do. And I don't want to take, you can if you want, but I scrolled down a little bit to try and make it interesting.
No, that's totally fine. At quarterback, I'm going to go with Justin Herbert. He had an okay week last week. I don't think it was anything crazy impressive, but he's going up against Dallas this week, which we just saw Tom Brady absolutely torch. And I think that Justin Herbert is not going to have to try too hard to be able to do the same because Dallas is just completely depleted on defense. And then, part of me wants to go George Kittle because I believe that the Eagles linebackers are absolute garbage, but that didn't work for me last week. So I'm just going to take the other obvious pick in Darren Waller because he had 19 targets last week. And I'm hoping that this week he will get more than 10 receptions.
There you go. And with the final pick of the draft,
this is your flex, so you can do whatever you want.
I know.
Except take a quarterback.
Since I scrolled a little bit, I guess I'll take Tyreek Hill. Now I have the 2 pass catchers, so.
Great.
You're doomed.
You just got a guy that scored 2 touchdowns for Patrick Mahomes and another guy that had 197 yards, I believe. So, that's great. You just got
I told you. I'm going to take all of your underdog dollars.
Look, that's fine. If you want to, you know what? It is what it is. I'm fine with that. But I think I'm going to win this week. I'm pretty confident in my picks. And I think this is exciting. I like the kind of quick nature of this and the ability to kind of be able to get out our takes a little bit and just, talk a little bit about different players that maybe we didn't get to touch on so much during the rest of the show. So,
yeah. Do you want to read me your team real quick?
If I can find where my team is. There it is. So I have Justin Herbert against Dallas at quarterback. I have Christian McCaffrey against New Orleans and Najee Harris against Las Vegas. And then I have DeAndre Hopkins against Minnesota and Justin Jefferson against Arizona. So I've got them in a duel, but at my wide receiver position. And then I have Darren Waller at my tight end position.
Love that. Darren Waller looks so good, like I said. So you never know. A lot of people are talking about that he could surpass Kelsey this year. So who knows? But
I don't know about all that.
I don't agree. I think Kelsey's going to stay there, but he did look really good. So
he did.
I don't mind him there for you. We have dueling running backs because I have Alvin Kamara as my running back, and that's the Saints at Carolina. So we have dueling running backs. But my quarterback is Kyler Murray against Minnesota, DK Metcalf against Tennessee, Cooper Kupp against the Colts, Tyreek Hill against Baltimore, and Travis Kelce against Baltimore. And my take there, like I said, was to kind of have 2 of the 2 targets in that offense. So if one of them is going to score, so.
I actually forgot that Kansas City and Baltimore are playing this week. And I feel like that's a little bit
So did Travis Kelce.
Well, I don't blame a football player for not knowing. Like, he's just, he's got other things to worry about, like the previous week. I don't have anything to do, so I feel like I should know. But I feel like in past years, that's been a much more hyped matchup. The Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Patrick Mahomes, the Chiefs. So I'm intrigued. I feel like that hasn't been getting as much hype, but
I think it's the injuries.
It should be a good game. That's true. Yeah.
Ravens.
It's a good point. And I guess it's really only Wednesday. I don't know. I'm just making excuses. I'm sure it'll be fine. But yeah, I believe that brings us to the end of our broadcast tonight, the Undroppables Playbook. Shout out to Underdog real quick. Another one of our sponsors over at the Undroppables. That's the platform we just used to do our little 2-person draft. We used them last week as well. And we're going to use them most weeks. They have a ton of stuff going on over there. They have best ball during the off season, which is probably why you've heard of them. They became pretty massive this off season, where we can just, as Brad is saying in the comments, lighting money on fire. Entering 1 billion best ball drafts. And during the season, they've got a lot of these, 2-person up to 12-person drafts just weekly, where you can just play against your friends for 1 week, draft a team, throw it out, start again the next week. They have different pick'ems. They've got a lot of different stuff going on. They're a great platform, really awesome to work with. And they're just a lot of fun to use. So shout out to them. But Ashley, you want to close us out?
Yeah, of course. Thank you guys for stopping by of episode 2 of the Undroppables Playbook. It was a lot of fun doing a couple of game breakdowns. We're probably going to pick a couple of games every week to break down, talk about a little bit more in depth. You can find me at Ashley_Marie on Twitter. That's 2 A's in Ashley. I live tweet a lot of the games. So if you want to know my thoughts, it's just scattered around on my Twitter. You can also make sure you follow the Undroppables on Twitter and on TikTok, especially on TikTok. I spend a lot of my time on the Undroppables TikTok. And make sure to stop by next week.
You get to see Tommy Moe on TikTok.
I do.
That man can dance.
He really can.
I love Tommy.
He really can. He can dance better than I can, that's for sure. I'm not coordinated. But make sure you follow the Undroppables TikTok. And make sure you stop by here every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to watch it live. And again, you can watch this back on anywhere that you get your podcasts. Apple, Google, Spotify, like I said, anywhere. And live on YouTube and on Twitter. But Dunks, why don't you tell them where they can find you?
I am at mpduncan75 on Twitter. I like to tweet about the Eagles in my free time and how angry they are making me.
But not this week.
No, not this week, but just give it some time. Give it some time. Philadelphia is a great place to live. Good things happen in Philadelphia, I'm pretty sure is what our former president said. So, follow me on Twitter. I also do talk about fantasy football a decent bit. So, thanks for coming. Thanks for listening. And looking forward to next week. Talking to you guys again.
We'll see you guys next week. Enjoy football.
Go Birds.
Go Giants.